As a practice owner, it's inevitable that from time to time, you're going to lie awake at night worried about things. But what if they're the wrong things? My guest today coaches private practice owners on growing their practices, which definitely requires focusing on the right things. And she's going to tell us what she means by that. I'm Carl White, principal at Market Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Usually that's what they want anyway, but care is better when the provider owns the practice because that's when they're going to have the most freedom to make the clinical decisions and other decisions that they think are best for their patients. It's just not always the same when somebody else owns the practice. Usually, sometimes, inevitably, their agenda starts to creep into the conversation. It's more for the provider to think about and deal with. Let's just keep it simple and keep it private. My guest today is Michelle O'Connor. Michelle is a believer in following one's dreams, and she's risen from an inner city community to a life of abundance. With corporate expertise in strategic planning and execution, she helps entrepreneurs achieve their goals. Michelle supports organizations through strategic processes, coaching entrepreneurs to develop action plans for success. She has facilitated strategic planning retreats in Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Dominican Republic, and reach hundreds through her purpose-driven conference. Her current mission is to help medical private practice owners create sustainable practices. As a wife and mother, she strives for a brighter future, motivated by the philosophy Ad Astra Per Aspera. Michelle, definitely
Hey,
looking forward to this one. Thanks for coming on Practice Care.
thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to be here.
Yes, absolutely. And regular listeners know where I'm going to start. It's the tell us more about yourself because that bio is short, but please work in the philosophy.
The
Translate it
philosophy.
for us. Tell us what it means and why that motivates you.
Yes. So I am a business person. I worked in finance for over 25 years. And one of the things that I love is planning. I
Mhm.
didn't realize how much it was entrenched in my life until I was actually being interviewed by somebody else. And she said, what if you were going to write a book about yourself when you were 6? And I think about my life and my journey and growing up in a single parent home. Mom had to leave. I'm actually from Jamaica for the listeners.
Mhm.
And, in third world countries, a lot of the times parents leave to first world countries just to find a better life. And I remember thinking about my life and thinking about as a child, not wanting to even do that for my child when I start a family. And I thought that education was important. Fast forward to where I am now and everything the journey of my life, I think about the fact that I had a plan. I knew what my goal was,
Mhm.
and I had to take some steps in between to get to my goal. And that is exactly what planning is about. And so I love it. I started out doing vision boards, and vision boards turned into working with entrepreneurs. And I actually just love and have a passion for persons who have a goal. And I'm a true believer in helping them because I wish I had somebody who would hold me when I was just starting out in life,
Yeah.
getting into a teenager to say, what do you want to become? Where do you see yourself? What are the things that you need? Or this is just the landscape of things that you're able to achieve. And so I'm really, really passionate about helping persons work through that in many different areas.
Yeah. I'm like you, planning. It's funny whenever I hear, well, we'll just see where it goes. I've learned in life that's really about as good as it gets, but it's not my initial reaction. Like,
No,
why don't we, it can't go
no,
anywhere. It's got to go to a
somewhere.
few somewhere, and it can go where it wants or where I would like it to go.
Correct.
The chances that those two happen to this, I don't know. I don't, and
Yeah.
sometimes I overplan and I catch myself. I'm like, Carl, what are you doing? You know,
Yeah, and
I,
it's funny, and I guess whenever I don't know if this happens to you, where you're in a group and they have an idea to do something, and you see them operating all over the place, and I'm going, no, and I have to talk to myself, Michelle, no, that's not you.
yeah, you
Step
want to
back.
know why? Because then you come across as negative.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, you're a buzzkill. I'm not trying to be, but my man, you're plinkoing all over the room.
Yes, and then
And
what ends
yeah,
up happening is along the journey, they are meeting up on a point. Oh, I should have thought of that. Oh, I should have thought, and I'm like, yeah, I was
well, I
telling
did, and you called me a buzzkill, so I
you.
shut
Yes.
up. So yeah, right back at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just working in, the philosophy. I was just talking to a friend of mine about a few years ago, and maybe about 10 years ago. And I was just talking, we were sharing things about our life. And I was saying to her, it's in those most difficult moments that you really try and aim for the stars and you realize that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So in times when things are challenging, when things don't seem like they're going the way you want to, it's not, don't give up. And I've
Yeah.
learned that from a personal standpoint, even ended up in business. I don't know
Yeah.
if we spoke about it earlier, but I wanted to become a doctor. I did sciences in school and it never worked out. And I remember there was a point where I was just, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? And then you figure something out. And
Mm-hmm.
I take that with persons because a lot of the persons who come to me, there's a point where they're like, you know what, I want to give up on this business idea or this practice. I'm done. I've given everything. And I'm like, you really haven't given everything. Let's have a further conversation about
Yeah.
what else you could give. And I accept that for my personal life. And I bring that into conversations with
Yeah.
persons as well.
I've come around to you've given everything you know of, but that
I love
doesn't mean
that.
you've given everything there is.
Everything
So
you
you
know
got to
of.
get some new ideas or yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so we're going to talk about don't focus on the wrong things, whether you're lying awake at night about them or not. And it begs the question to get into it. How do you figure out what is worth focusing on? What is lying awake at night worried about if even though there's an army of coaches who will tell you never to do that. But you know what I mean? Like how do you get into the universe of good, proper, right things to
Yeah.
focus on?
So I think most of us don't know what the wrong or right things are. It's just a
Yeah.
thing. There's a challenge, there's something that's making you uncomfortable and you're awake at night thinking about it. So what I practice and I share this with others, I make notes of where my thoughts are.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, if I'm at wake and if I'm awake at night and I'm thinking about it, I go back to what a lot of persons may not have, and I have a vision. I know the things, I know the goals, I know where I want to be. And I think about why are these things keeping me up? Are they aligned to where I want to go? And it comes back to planning. A lot of things come back to planning.
Mm-hmm.
So you may not know if it's wrong or right, but it could be, what I'm doing right now is not in alignment with where I want to be or the things I want to go after.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about it, writing it down, you have a benchmark, you have a baseline to kind of measure it against and say, oh, I'm focusing on this thing, but this is really not the main thing. Why is it? And you ask yourself that question, and you're able to either pull back and maybe I saw somebody on social media who told me to focus on it, or
Dangerous.
maybe I have this idea. I saw somebody doing something and I want to be doing it, but it's keeping me up because it's not the thing that I want to focus on. Or I don't know what I want to focus on and I need to talk to somebody to help me, work that thought through.
Yeah. It really comes back to a goal, doesn't it? I mean, unless you have, so now this new shiny little object just crossed your desk and it seems really interesting. You could, it just, unless you have that object to compare against something,
Yeah.
which to me is the goal, um, you could go down any path with anything, right?
Yep, yep. And that is what happened for so many persons. So I having that goal, and persons are like, oh, not everybody likes planning. Planning doesn't get you anywhere, but it's a roadmap. It can let you know if you're off track or not. So
Yeah.
if you think about going on a journey, you go online and you're using an app to get it to your destination, you know where the destination is. The
Mhm.
plan now helps you to see if there's traffic, you're able to see if there are accidents, some help you to see if there are police officers on the road.
Right. Right.
That it gives you a timeline as well when you're going to get there. But having a goal is essential because that is now going to be the point that you're going towards. Otherwise, you're a little all over the place.
It's just activity, and you're never going to like. I'm working with an organization right now, and I've been asked a couple of times, Carl, we need a marketing plan. I say, great. What's the growth goal? And I get silence. I'm like, look, I'm not going to do it because I won't. None of us are going to have any idea if this plan's working because and
Correct.
it's not like we're taking this goal and etching it in stone and signing it or whatever. And if we miss it, oh my God. But you need, because if the goal is marginal growth, that's a very different plan than if the goal is to
Mhm.
triple or whatever the goal is. So I'm still waiting for the goal.
Yeah.
And at that point I'll think about a plan. But I mean, it's a waste of everyone's time. And I just keep trying
Yes,
to explain that.
and when you think about even persons who are online or they have a brick and mortar business, when they don't have a goal, And they come and they say, Michelle, you know, I'm working so hard. Like I had a consultation yesterday with a gynecologist, and she was talking about the number of hours that she's spending in her practice. And, you know, she has no more time to put any more clients. So she's sure she can't make any more money. And we had conversations about, okay, what's the financial goal that you have for the year? And she's like, no, I don't have one. You know, patients need to come
Well,
and
then, you know,
therein lies the first problem that
yeah,
may be keeping you up. What's keeping you up is that you're fully booked, you're not making the profit, but you don't have a goal. Let's talk about what that goal could be. We have to work that through, because otherwise I'll call you, Carl, and I'm like, okay, Carl, I have a client who needs a marketing plan, but you don't know what you're working on. You don't know
yeah,
why it is you're doing what you need to do. And it turns out that you may not be, you know, I work with Carl and I didn't get the results, but we didn't have a goal. And I'm happy
correct.
that you're sticking to it, because I'm firm on that. We need to establish what the goals are first before you even start doing anything.
Right. It seems like goal setting is a real challenge for a lot of people. I can't say you know, I'll struggle with from time to time too. I don't know why. Like, you know, it's a simple thing to say, but I guess it's not as simple. Like, what do you,
Yeah.
how do you, how do you do it? That's a too big
So,
of a question, but like, you know, just to kind of
no,
get us started.
yeah, but I can tell you what I found is goal setting is an emotional activity. For
Mm,
those of us who are wired that way, and I've learned to accept that there are some of us who are analytical in how we think, and then there are those persons who they are creatives. And what you find with creatives is that they take up the next shiny object and they run without thinking about it. They're just not made that way.
mhm,
But goal setting is emotional, because what I am saying is I am making a decision that this is something I'm going after. And what it brings up for a lot of person is fear.
mm,
I, if I set that thing, I'm now accountable to it. I have now put it out there. People know I now need to do the work. What if it doesn't work? And because they have that fear, they prefer to wing it, to wake up every day and go after things just in case. But
mhm,
that fear of what may happen in between is what keeps a lot of persons from setting goals. And
mm.
from my experience in corporate, I bring it to persons and I'm like, listen, I've worked for a large financial institution. There are times we set goals, we don't achieve them, but nobody knows. You know, if you think about before social media, if you were having an event and you were going door to door, the only persons who probably know that your event didn't happen were the persons who you went to.
Yeah.
No, because it's all over social media and we feel that people are looking. We are fearful. So the thing is, I say to persons, we've set a lot of goals in our strategic planning sessions. A lot of them didn't happen. A lot of them happened and didn't bear fruit. But when you have a plan, you have information as to what didn't work, what worked, and what you need to do next. And that is just the gem of having a plan.
Yeah. And it took me, I say like it took like past tense, 4 or 5 go rounds in my own company here to have a goal where I stared at and went, well, that doesn't seem totally ludicrous,
Yeah.
you know? And when I was working in large corporate also, this one guy, he would say, look, the one thing we know about this forecast is it's wrong. It's the one
Yeah.
certainty we've got. It's wrong
Correct.
somehow. That's not the real point of it. The real point is to give us something to go after. And along the way,
Yeah.
we'll learn, we'll get better, and to, you know, screen what's appropriate to go after and spend time on the right things versus what's
Yeah.
totally inappropriate. Because
Yeah.
why is it inappropriate? It's either going to take us off the pursuit of our goal, or it's got nothing to do with the goal, which I guess is the same thing. Even if you've got like I don't know if you probably face this too. Now you've got a list of 10 shiny objects that all seem, you know, they're going to help me hit our goal, but you can't get all 10 done.
No.
There's no way. So you got to rank them, at least prioritize them somehow.
Prioritize.
How do
Yes.
you do that? Which one's the best chance to hit the goal? Well, there you go. Which one's the least chance? There you go. And you just look at it, you go, and what are you accountable to? You're accountable to yourself. You're accountable to whoever you want to be. But it takes a few go rounds.
It does.
You
It
know,
does.
and anybody who looks at you and goes, well, you didn't hit your goal. What's your goal, moron? Oh, you don't have one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Off you go. At least I'm trying.
And then it comes back again to looking at other persons like you just shared. Maybe persons will see and, oh, you know, Carl is hitting stuff and it's working for him. You had a few times when it never worked,
Mhm.
but set something, because that now keeps you going. I remember when it was the financial crisis back in '09 or '08, I think. And we were working hours, creating various scenarios about what could happen and what couldn't happen. And at the end of it, when we realized that we didn't get a big hit, somebody said there was no scenario that we had that, was
What if the
like,
world fell apart? How about planning for that scenario? Yeah.
you just have to go through, can this work? What do I need to do to make it work? And what you're gathering is evidence. And it takes a certain kind of thinking, which I've completely accepted that just not everybody have that way of thinking.
Yeah.
To work through the different scenarios about the goal that you may have for yourself. So I completely agree. And half the time, I think I heard somebody say, I can't remember it's who, they're like, as an entrepreneur, the first goal that you set, you're not going to hit it.
No.
You're not going.
Goal. Yeah.
It's not going to work, but you
Yeah.
keep at it. If you really believe in it, you really believe that this is just something that you want to go after, you keep going at it.
Yeah. So you're saying creatives have a hard time, analyticals don't.
Yeah.
How much of a planner or analytical do you need to be? Like what, I don't want to scare people off. Like, so should the creatives who are listening go, well, I guess sucks to be me because this is my life for the rest of my, you know what I mean?
You know what happens? I think when you're able to, and I went through this process of understanding what my personality type is, and it's completely changed how I worked with others. So when I'm able to accept that this is just how I was made, my role in life is to take an idea that somebody has, think about the end in mind, and create the steps in between. There's somebody else who is a creative who can take my idea and make it look attractive to the world. That is how they were born. Now, the thing is, you don't want, and I know in organizations, we sometimes focus on your weaknesses and let's work on your weaknesses.
Yeah.
You're strong at this thing. I don't want you as a creative to be thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to plan this thing out? This thing is driving. No, focus on the things that you're good at and delegate the planning side. Somebody can give you something that you can take up, because that's what creative needs. They need instructions. They want somebody to say, do this today, do that tomorrow. So don't be fearful about it. That is your natural given talent. Like for me, I know I'm not on the creative side. I can help myself. So it's going to take hours to do something that a creative maybe. Oh, I can think about that. It's like I was watching this house renovation on TV, and I had to follow the guy on Instagram. I'm like, oh my God, it must take you must have this special gift where you can look at a blank canvas and you see potential. That is a creative.
Yes.
Lean into what your natural talents are and hand over the thinking through an analytic part to somebody else. That is going to keep you up at night.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What color should it be? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather shoot myself. Yeah, I can't do it. Can't do it. Yeah.
I'm like, he said a color, and I have to be like, I didn't even know that color existed in life. But it was so beautiful. That is the gem of a creative. So whatever you are, whatever your personality type is, don't try and fix your weaknesses. Glow in your strength, like the world is waiting on you, and allow the persons who have strength in the other areas to support you.
And then the other side of the question is, how do you know when you're starting to like over plan?
So it's funny. When I did that, I did a leadership program that identified that with myself, right?
Yeah.
And I had to ask myself, I'm like, oh my God, because as a planner, I'm not very spontaneous. I take a while to make decisions. I remember that the guy said to us, if you're an analyst, it means that you look at a vehicle, you go home, you research the vehicle, you think about the price, you look at your budget. By the time you're finished analyzing, it's like 2 years and you need another vehicle, right? So I thought about it. And for me, I catch myself because I'm aware. And I say to myself, hindsight is 2020. And only hindsight is 100% correct. So when I have an idea now, I catch myself if I'm overthinking. If I have to ask myself more than 5 questions, Michelle, just take action. You know to give you information. Because then when you delay, you now lose the enthusiasm about what you want to do. You lose the urge. You start thinking about all the things that may not happen. Go ahead and do it right away and see what happens.
Yeah.
So it's about catching yourself. It's necessary at times. In business, we need to set our goals. But in leading to the goal, you may decide, I may decide, you know what, I saw Carl on LinkedIn. I want to reach out to Carl. Oh, what if Carl says no? What if he doesn't answer? You just go ahead and do it sometimes.
Yeah.
And we know ourselves, we know ourselves,
Yeah.
we start overthinking, take action immediately and see what happens.
It's true. I mean, to take a saying that I was told and just modifying a bit, there are no insights at your desk.
No,
Eventually, you got to get
no.
up and go do the thing,
Yeah,
learn, and look, if it just starts to go south bad enough, just stop it. You've learned something.
yeah.
You'll either find out X can work or it can't. And yeah, but there are no
I love
insights
that.
at your desk.
And we're not tied to the decisions that we made for life,
No.
especially as an entrepreneur. Like, you are the CEO. You can decide today without consulting. Some persons have boards and advisory committees and stuff, but you don't have to go and call a board meeting, wait for persons to clear their calendars.
Right.
So, you can make a decision, what, this isn't working. Let me divert my energy into something else because I got the insight that I need, and now I
Yeah.
get to move on.
And here, as we record this in the summer of 2024, thousands upon thousands of entrepreneurs are screwing up right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're learning from it,
Yeah.
hopefully, and they'll get better. That's the way.
Yeah.
There's just no substitute.
It's just we're not showcasing. We could sit and talk about all the mishaps that we've had since the year started,
Hmm.
but because you're in the belly of the work and you're doing so much, you're just fixing and going ahead. That is why persons write their biography many years after, and then you're like, oh my God, they went through that. Oh my God, we're all failing every day.
Every
We just
day.
find a way to get up and go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So we've talked about like what some of the right things to focus on are. Chief among them is the goal, the steps that get there. What are some of the wrong things that you see people focusing on? Just to give us some examples so people listeners can go, oh my God, she's right.
yeah.
That's me. You
So
know?
if you're an say let's use entrepreneurs, since we're talking to those persons as an example,
Hmm.
you may be thinking to yourself, I need to go on TikTok. Let's use that as an example.
Mm.
Because I see somebody else on TikTok and they have a number of followers and they're doing X, Y, and Z. My question to you is, do you want to be on TikTok?
Hmm.
Most of the times when if persons are saying that they don't want to, I may want to consume, but I don't want to give. And that's
Hmm.
okay. So if something is not tied to you from a values perspective or from a natural, like you don't wake up and this is, I can't wait to go on a live, I can't wait to go on TikTok, then it's just not you.
Right.
So if you're thinking about how it is that you're going to move your business forward, I want you to think about one, we focus on what you need to focus on, which is your goal. That gives you an indication of where you need to be.
Mm.
Another thing persons might be, I need more clients. Sometimes as a solopreneur, you don't have the capacity for more clients.
Hmm.
Maybe what you do need is a way to scale your business or a way to reach more persons or focus on one thing. Focus on one thing,
Hmm.
add value, provide value to persons, and they will come to you.
Hmm.
So my suggestions to persons a lot of times is when you're thinking of what to focus on or what not to focus on, if you are going to come and say somebody else did it and it worked, the question for you is, did it work? Is that something I feel tied to? Does this excite me? When I think,
Yeah.
does it put a smile on my face? If not, that's not the thing that you want to focus
Right.
on.
Right. Is it really an apples to apples comparison? That worked for them. Great. Um, do you need it to work for you? I mean, is
Correct.
it the same? Is it the
Maybe
same?
not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's it's almost the same as persons who you want to grow your business and for some reason you're thinking about increasing your client base. So
Hmm.
let's use the client I had a call with this week, and she just had a baby, and I'm asking her, you already are showing up in two practices and you're thinking about growing. Let's look at what you have on your plate now without even expansion any at all. And one of the ideas that we explored, and we're going to be continuing our conversation, is she has three prices for her patients. And I said to her, what if you thought about targeting your patients who are at a higher paying point? These are new patients. Because as a gynecologist, persons will come to you, maybe they repeat if they're pregnant, but
Hmm.
outside of that, they're coming to you for routine checkup, maybe once or twice per year.
Hmm.
So what if we focus our energy on finding your new patients? Therefore, you might be taking in the same client load,
Hmm.
but you're bringing in persons who are paying you more money, right? There, you're increasing your revenue. And she said, you know what, that makes sense because I am coming from what is your goal? What does your life look like as a solopreneur? Do you have the capacity for everything that you're asking for? If you're going to
Yeah.
be working alone, if you're bringing in somebody else, that's a different conversation. But if you're the only person, let's look at what you have capacity for right now and not just what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. And when you said that, I was thinking there's a little bit of math you have to be okay either doing or watching, right? Because um, the numbers don't, if they're very truth telling.
Very.
So, well, I need to double my X, but you're out of time.
Yeah.
What are you going to stay up all night? I mean, explain this to me. How's this going to work? Because here are the numbers. We just agreed
Yep.
to them. So that path, that's a way. So if how do I figure out what the right versus wrong things are? One way that might give you a little bit of an inkling is are there numbers that you can put together to help you figure out the answer to that question?
Yeah.
You know?
And
Yeah.
there that you say numbers, and so many entrepreneurs are afraid of numbers. They don't want to look at the numbers and it's an emotional thing, having done budgeting as well in my financial life. It's almost like we know the initial phase of your businesses may not be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And persons don't want to face that reality. And looking at the numbers, because the numbers don't lie, they like, maybe I should stay away. Let's keep on working. I'm busy, I'm doing so.
Mm-hmm.
But your numbers never ever lie, as you say. It's math.
Yeah.
It's you have this amount of time in the day, you can see this number of patients. If you increase this, what's going to happen to your time?
Yeah.
You can't increase that unless you're going to give up something else. What are you willing to, or what do you have the capacity or the ability to give up?
Yeah. And I think I wonder if part of it with just sort of the fear of numbers is that the people who tend to explain the numbers aren't very good at it. And
Oh,
so they get just buried in the deep end of the pool or whatever the metaphor is. And so you just get lost like an income statement. I mean, I know how to read them. I got an MBA. That's how I learned. But I know, like in my business, there's really a very small handful of numbers I need to kind of keep an eye on. And I
yep.
know that if they're good, the rest kind of is good.
Yes.
We had an episode where it was something called revenue cycle management, which is all about billing and insurance and everything
Yeah.
else. And the whole topic was how do you keep your finger on the pulse of your RCM in like 5 minutes a week? And the only way you can do that is just 3 or 4 numbers you need to kind of keep an eye on. And then
Mhm.
if there's a red flag, okay, let's go dig. But you don't have to know it as well as your accountant. You just have to force the numbers person to explain it in a way that you can actually grasp it and don't stop until you understand it.
Correct. And I did a live on that in a Carl. And the reason was when I met with entrepreneurs and, we're starting our engagement, I want to see what your income statement, I want to see what your financials look like.
Mhm.
A lot of times they don't have it because their accountants complete it and they do it for tax purposes.
Yeah.
They don't understand what the numbers mean. And I say to them, okay, these are maybe four that you want to look at. And if you are able to know what's my revenue? What percentage of my expense, what's the ratio revenue and expense? What's my
Hmm.
profit? And I never understood my CEO until I started my own business in 2018, right? I was doing it while I was working, but he was so tied to our CFO, and my CFO could do nothing wrong. But I understood it after I became an entrepreneur because this is the guy who's giving him the information that he needs to lead as a CEO. When he came into any meeting, he knew the numbers before the manager started making their presentation.
Hmm.
And so I say to entrepreneurs, ask your accountants the right question, or your bookkeeper. Ask them to explain it to you. What does this mean for me in my business?
Yeah.
That is what is going to give you some direction. And as you said, just pick 3 or 4. The rest, some of them lead to the end. You don't need to know your earning before interest and tax all the time. Like you want to know what your revenue is. You want to know what your cost of operation is. You want to know your overhead costs, and you probably want to know what your end profit is going to be, or even your gross profit. But there are some numbers that you need to be able to understand. Ask the questions. If you don't understand it, and I agree, a friend of mine said my accountant asks us if they work for the government and not me, but You know,
Mm,
get an accountant who, and I think I heard of someone and their accounting business did very well because they branded themselves as financial educators and not just filing taxes. I'm
yeah.
making you know that if this number is out, you need to look at something else in your business. But the numbers is a big thing for
It
entrepreneurs.
is, and anything can be quantified. It doesn't have to be overdone. And you know, if your accountant is finished explaining and you still don't understand it, then you got to be able to say, I still don't understand what you mean. That's first point. Second point is there are plenty of accounting firms out there who specialize with medical practices, dental practices,
Yeah,
and they, since that's their client base, it makes sense that they'd be able to understand your practice a bit better than the average and
yeah,
maybe explain it and answer your questions a bit better than the average. But if you don't understand, like, you know, just to take it in reverse, you and I mean, a creative could explain to us why that, you know, that visual is designed the way it is probably 10 or 15 times. And there's a good chance I wouldn't understand any of
yeah.
them. I would just say, look, I just want to hire you because you are totally jazzed about this. And when you say it's awesome, I'm going to go with you. You can't really, you know, divorce yourself that much from your numbers.
No,
You just need to know the few that matter the most. And you really have to kind of understand them, not
yeah,
deep dive understand it, but you have to grasp so that when the number goes south, you can see it and go, wait a second, that's a problem. Because it's
yeah.
your business, it's not your accountant's,
Correct. And
you know?
I completely align with, you know, getting persons who are in your field to support you because it
Yeah.
means they also have a very good picture of what's happening globally. So they can
Yeah.
even give you direction that, you know, the average for this should be X, yours is Y. These are
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that my other clients are doing, and it's out there in the public. So it's not like I'm disclosing private information. How about considering? Because
Yeah.
we believe, as you said when we started, you remind me of the quote. You said we only know what we when we're talking about. You don't know everything.
There's no insights at your desk.
Right. That and something had to do with you only know what you know. You know,
Yeah.
there are
Oh,
other things
yeah. You've run out of the ideas you can come up with yourself. Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I completely endorse that. I mean, just having connections and conversations, you realize that there's so many other ways to do things, and you can't know by sitting by yourself and trying to figure
Yeah.
it out. And I know it's
Yeah.
vulnerable and it's almost as if you admitting that what you're doing isn't working, but it's okay. We all do that. We all need support
It's just not working for now. It
for
can be
now.
changed. Yeah. It's not forever. And by the way, if your accountant is mainly a tax preparer, that, you know,
Red
yeah, they
flag.
can explain it, but they can't really interpret it. That's the big deal
Yeah.
difference. There's plenty of accounting firms out there that also do like practice management services. They're doing more of what we're talking about. So
Mhm.
find somebody who's an expert. Um, any other of the wrong things you see people focusing on? Like any just interesting examples just to give people an idea?
So we touched on the marketing. The marketing is a big one, and the number of clients is a big one.
Hmm.
Another thing, especially in the medical, in the private practice, is focusing on too many services.
Mm,
So we know you went to medical school, you're very talented, and there are many areas that you can focus on. But I think when you're able to narrow down what you offer and make it very clear to persons, you may find that you probably don't have to do the work to get patients in. So,
yeah.
for example, I came up with one about persons, you're a dentist, and your niche is focusing on patients who fear the dentist chair.
Hmm.
And you may not think that people do, but people do. You know,
Oh,
they
I think
think
most of them
about
do.
going to the
Yeah.
dentist and they get anxiety. What if you are that person?
Yeah.
Or, you know, I had a dermatologist. When I started with her, her website had maybe 36 different things that she did. And I'm like,
Wow.
this feels like I'm running on a treadmill.
Hmm.
Let's narrow it down and use the words that your patients use. You
Hmm.
know, when you use the words that you learned in medical school, persons don't know what that is. And there's so many different things that can happen to our body based on what you focus on, but
Yeah.
narrow down your services so persons know I'm going to this person because they do this particular thing. That way you pull persons into you. And it can go for anybody who is in business. When you're doing too many things, persons see you. I had that personal experience when I just started
Yeah.
because I did strategy. I'm like, I can help anybody and I can, you know, I can develop
I'll kill
strategic
myself
plans.
along the way, but
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And every time I would share with persons that this is what I do, they ask me one question, for who? And my question is, anybody.
For you. Yeah.
You know, but persons didn't see themselves as anybody. They see themselves as a medical private practice owner. They
Hmm.
see themselves as a lawyer. So narrow down who it is that you're serving. What are you offering? That way you're not burnt out and trying to do it the way everybody else is doing it. And that can cause you less burnout, less stress, pulling
Yes.
persons in. You're monitoring this one thing. It helps so many things, Carl, because how you recruit, how you market, how you train, it filters down. So that's another mistake that I think a lot of persons, we're talented, we're all talented, we can
Yeah.
do many things, but
Yeah.
what's that one thing that you're called to do right
It's
now?
true. And even if you look at some of the largest companies on earth, you could look out, I'll just pick, Coca-Cola. They do drinks, a lot of
Yeah.
them, but they're not really into food. They're not into clothing. They're not, they're the drinks people. It's kind
Yeah.
of, sort of, I look at some of the companies I worked for, they were very specialized and they just did it really, really well. There's now inside the company, lots of things going on, right? Lots of
Yeah.
planning, lots of everything else, lots of product choices, but they're all of a particular type of product,
Yeah.
right? There's just so yeah, I mean, it takes a little while to figure out who you're really good with.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's why doing it helps,
mhm.
because then you get information. It's
Yeah,
like I work for a financial company and we started out by offering bonds and stocks. That's what we start. That was the only thing we did.
mhm.
And then we realized that our clients were asking for more. They wanted a savings account, or they wanted
Yeah,
insurance. And we started thinking about the financial goals that clients have, and then we added other things, but we made sure that we got that one thing right
yeah.
first. So if you're even thinking of maybe adding other things, ensure that it complements this one goal that you have for
Hmm.
your clients, and it's adding and not taking away from and doing many other things
Right. It
as
makes
well.
sense that you would offer it, and your core offer, you're
Yeah,
really, really good at it.
it complements it. It doesn't
Yes.
take away, it complements it.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Um, Man, we could keep going. We really could. I love this, especially a fellow large corporate America planner like me. So yes,
Yeah.
but in the interest of shorter, a bit more bite-sized episode, there's a
Yeah.
couple of wrap-up questions I ask every guest. The first one is there anything you think we should have covered or I should have asked you, but we just didn't get to it?
I can't even think of any card because we had so
Eh,
many
yeah.
interesting conversations. The only thing I'll just reiterate is on the get closer to your why. That was the only other thing I could
Mm,
think of. Because on your journey as an entrepreneur, even on your journey in life, you are going to meet up on challenges and face obstacles. But when you're connected to that why, which is normally deeper than, anybody can see, that drives you. This is a hurdle, but I'm going to keep on going. So get connected to why you're doing the thing you're doing in the first place. If there was nobody around, would this be the thing that you're doing? Get connected to your why, then set your goal, and then do everything else that we
yeah.
encourage you to do
Do you
here.
find that kind of toggles back and forth as you were saying that? I was thinking, I'll bet you could find a healthy proportion of people who say, so what's your why? They wouldn't know. Well,
Yeah.
then let's set some goals, go live them, and maybe you'll find out, oh, that feels terrible. And I don't want to do that, even though I said I did. Why is that? Well, I don't know, maybe that's a way into
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
why. Do you ever
that's
find that?
true. Yeah, because again, trying to figure out what your why is emotional. It's
Mm,
you going below surface, like going deep, deep in the ocean. And
mhm.
so maybe persons don't want to do that. The minute you start asking about the goal and they get, no, I don't want to do it, you may find that they don't want to do it because it's not connected to their why.
Yeah,
And it slowly comes out. So it does
right.
work that way as well.
Yeah, maybe there's some iteration. Um, the other question I ask is, how can somebody get started going down this path? The path we've been talking about, focusing on the right things, not the wrong things. I'm imagining hopefully we've caught some listeners' attention, but they don't know where to get started. They think Michelle's right, but where do I get, people kind of get stuck at the starting line sometimes. So a
Yeah.
couple of really super simple things to do, you think?
I yes, I encourage persons to just write down the things that are on your mind.
Mm,
First thing, just do a brain dump. These are
hmm.
all the things that I'm thinking about. And then think about one thing that at the end of 2024, if I was able to do this one thing, I would have seen that my year was successful.
Hmm.
And once you've done that, I want you to go back to your list, your brain dump list, and pick maybe two or three things that you're able to do. I mean, I would really say one,
Hmm.
because it takes a while for you to develop habits. So
Hmm.
therefore, pick one. Let me just go back. Pick one thing that can help you to achieve that goal and master it. Do
Mm,
everything, whether you're going to listen to YouTube video, read what's on the internet, you name it, partner with somebody, do that one thing that can
yeah.
help you get to your goal until you develop the habit and until it becomes successful.
Yeah. I like that. I was thinking of one too about make your first goal. I'm going to set a goal. So and so this year is, I'm going to pick a number. I don't know.
Yep,
Take last year's revenue and add 10%. I don't know.
yep,
And I'm just going to go for it and live it. And really, that's not the real goal. That's not the real first goal. But I'm doing this because I don't know of any other way to figure out
yeah.
how to do this. And I just got to go
Minimum.
live it for a
And
while.
that's an excellent
Maybe
example.
give yourself like
Pick a number.
3 years. In 3 years, I'm going to have a goal where I look at it and go, that makes sense.
Yes.
If you probably get there faster. But the
Yeah.
only way to do it is to, what do you think? Is that,
Just go ahead and do it because you
yeah.
never know. When we're doing strategic planning, we pick numbers. This is the ROI, this is the profit, and we sit for over a week and brainstorm. And you're talking about executives at the highest level, and we're brainstorming whether or not we think it can work. And
Yeah.
at the end of the week, maybe it never worked, but guess what? We picked a number, but
Mhm.
don't stall. Pick a number, increase it, and remember, it's not the goal. You may not achieve it, but you're going to gather so much information about yourself, about your business, about the environment in which you operate, and it's going to be golden.
Yeah. And the first goal then is, I'm going to start learning how to set a goal.
Yes, that's your first
Because
goal.
yeah, life's easier when you have one. So absolutely. Michelle, thank you so much. This is a great conversation. Hopefully, I'm sure we've picked some interest with people, with listeners to say, she's right. This afternoon I'm going to go try to do that stupid thing. Now I know it's stupid
Yeah.
because it doesn't make any sense for me to do. And Michelle was the reason why. So thank you. Thanks for coming on Practice Care.
Thank you so much for having me, Carl. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And in the show notes for your episode, you gave us some contact information. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you and talk more about this, they now have another way to do so. A couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you're someone like Michelle or I, you serve private practice owners, you've got some experience you'd like to share with others, or if you're a private practice owner yourself and through, School of Hard Knocks and your own experience, you've got some wisdom you think your peers would benefit from either way, we'd like to come on Practice Care and tell the world about them. In the show notes for Michelle's episode and every episode, there's a place you can go. It's a link, couple of clicks, couple of questions, really simple. Just tell us what's on your mind so we can get you scheduled as soon as possible. And finally, if you haven't done it yet, you got to subscribe to Practice Care. Practice Care, one word. We're on Apple, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on just about every player and platform. Easy to find, but we launch a new episode every week, and the easiest way to stay up to date is to subscribe. So please do so. Thanks very much, and until next time.